Indian Prime Minister Modi has had a groundbreaking meeting with Myanmar military regime chief Senior General Min Aung Hlaing on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC summit being held in Thailand and urged a return to democracy via elections. Though the Myanmar general was heckled at the international summit by protesters, with some even calling him a murderer, as anger against the military regime continues to rise. Now, India versus China power play is heating up inside Myanmar, with New Delhi eager to get the Kaladan multimodal transport corridor up and running through the Sittwe Port in the Rakhine state, a region currently under the control of the Arakan army, which has often overpowered the Myanmar junta regime. This project will connect Myanmar to India's northeastern states through Mizoram and then Manipur. This has become vital, especially with Bangladesh's interim government head Yunus inviting increased Chinese presence, threatening landlocked Indian seven sister states, as well as the strategic Siliguri corridor. Now India wants to bypass Bangladesh altogether, though securing the Kaladan project in war-torn Myanmar is a tough geopolitical challenge. Does India negotiate with the Arakan army, the Chin rebels, or the military regime? Now remember, India controls and manages the Sittwe port and even received the docking of the first Indian cargo ship there in 2023, but the entire project still isn't complete. Just last month, in a diplomatic coup, the Chief Minister of Mizoram brokered a ceasefire and fusion between Myanmar's two leading pro-democracy rebel groups based in the bordering Chin state, the Chin Land Council and the interim Chin National Consultative Council. The two factions are now combined under one umbrella, the Chin National Council. The end of the infighting would ensure peace along India's border in Mizoram. Now, this union was a watershed moment, symbolizing the virtual collapse of the Myanmar junta's presence in the Chin and Rakhine states. The military regime, which took over in 2021, is now relegated to playing a marginal role in these border regions. For India, the prime concern is lasting peace in these areas. India is pro-Myanmar, extending humanitarian support to all sides, including the rebels as well as the military junta. Bharat wants a peaceful solution to the Myanmar civil war. After the recent earthquake which killed 3,000 people and affected nearly 3 million, the Indian Navy delivered tons of relief material to Myanmar to aid the relief efforts. During his meeting with Myanmar military ruler, Prime Minister Modi expressed condolences for the loss of life. But talks also focused on other key issues. PM Modi stated, quote, "We also discussed bilateral relations between India and Myanmar, particularly in sectors like connectivity, capacity building, infrastructure development, and more," unquote. The Indian Prime Minister told Myanmar ruler, India has also set up military field hospitals in Mandalay, which is close to the epicenter of the quake. For India, peace and prosperity of Myanmar is of vital importance given the historical bonds between the two peoples as well as the shared religious and cultural heritage. Today, relations have gained more significance, especially the Sittwe Port project, which has gained increased geopolitical importance for India's economy and security of its northeastern states. With the collapse of the junta in Rakhine and Chin states, India must negotiate carefully to ensure the Kaladan project is up and running to protect its economic and strategic interests. The project opens up a critical transport corridor linking India's eastern seaboard to Rakhine's Sittwe port, then upstream along the Kaladan River to Palekwa in Chin state, and then 109 kilometers by road to Mizoram's Surinpui in India. Now, India's Act East policy flagship project, the Kaladan project, was planned as a lifeline for India's landlocked northeastern states. But over 13 years since its inception, the project is still incomplete, marred by delays and security issues due to the Myanmar civil war. Now, the project has two key components. a road and an inland waterway. The waterway component involving the development of the Sittwe port, a river terminal at Paletwa, and dredging of the Kaladan River has all been finished. But the most important leg, the final segment, the 109-kilometer highway from Paletwa in Chin State to Surinpui on the India-Myanmar border, has yet to be completed. The road going through one of Myanmar's more troubled regions has been a major stumbling block. The project suffered another major setback in 2019 when the Arakan army kidnapped 10 people, including 4 Indians and 2 employees of the Engineers Project India Limited. Though they were subsequently released after negotiations, an Indian national died of a heart attack during captivity. The Indian government then handed the project over to IRCON International Limited, which is a public sector undertaking under India's Ministry of Railways, who in turn then hired Myanmar-based subcontractors. A short truce between Myanmar's military and the Arakan army late in 2022 seemed to pave the way for the completion of the project finally. But those hopes were again crushed in late 2023 with fresh outbreak of violence. The failure of any truce was complete after Operation 1027 in northern Shan state involving the Three Brotherhood Alliance, of which the Arakan army is a part, destroying Myanmar's military in strategic locations. Now, while the Myanmar army is fighting to regain lost ground, the Kaladan project languishes once again. The Rakhine state is one of the most strategically important in Myanmar, blessed with natural riches and a center of great power rivalry. This is also the region from where the Arakan army drove away the Rohingya refugees. India is not the sole power interested here. China has pushed into this area aggressively, investing in the Kyak Phu deep water seaport, which is not far from India's Sittwe port and the Kaladan project. Though the Kyak Phu region has come under attack from the Arakan army. Now, while China has 70% share in this venture via the state-owned Citigroup, the port is part of the strategic 1,700-kilometer long China-Myanmar economic corridor. Now, Beijing gains the benefit of direct access to the Indian Ocean from this port without going through the highly contested South China Sea and the Malacca Strait for energy supplies. Indian policymakers are concerned that increased Chinese clout in Rakhine might complicate further or even slow down the Kaladan project. The Arakan army has captured almost all of the Rakhine state and are closing in on strategic cities of Sittwe, Kyak Phu and Manaung, which remain under the control of the junta. But analysts at the Thailand's Institute of Security and International Studies say the junta is on the verge of losing these remaining strongholds as well. With Chin and Rakhine in rebel hands now, India has a golden chance to finally secure its interests in this region with an end to the war. India has already invested 2,900 crore rupees in the Kaladan multimodal transit and transport project. Once up and running, this corridor will lower the cost of transport by 40% and shave half of the shipping time from Bengal to Mizoram and Tripura. Now that the junta is in retreat, however, India can negotiate with CNC and the Arakan army directly to restart the project, while at the same time urging all sides to find a peaceful end to this conflict. India does not covet any Myanmar territory but seeks a prosperous Myanmar, though a Mizoram MP did invite Chin rebels to merge with India if the war with the junta sees no end. But India now needs to use its clout across various factions and take bold action to cement its own interests. New Delhi must have a dialogue directly with the CNC to arrange for the Kaladan project completion, maybe even provide humanitarian assistance in order to help the CNC administer the Chin state, as well as negotiate with the military. New Delhi must urge all sides to help repatriate more than 32,000 refugees from Myanmar who have fled the fighting to India's Mizoram. These include civilians, the rebels, as well as officials from the Myanmar administration. India also needs to intensify its outreach to the Arakan army and the United League of Arakan by ensuring the conflict with the military junta does not impact India's port project. China has been playing both sides in Myanmar for years now. It has equipped the rebels with arms and ammunition while keeping diplomatic channels open with the junta and even supplying the military regime with military equipment. India needs to drop its risk-averse approach and take a more proactive stance. New Delhi somehow needs to ensure that China does not use Myanmar to completely encircle India. China has been increasing its influence, especially in Kyaikpyu, where Beijing is building this deep-sea port and SAZ. China is even considering sending security forces or its military into Myanmar's conflict zones, an action that may further intensify the nation's ruthless civil war or tip the scales finally in favor of the beleaguered military junta. In recent months, China has intensified its economic and diplomatic support for the junta, abandoning its previous balancing act between the military regime and the pro-democracy rebels. Initially cautious after the coup, China recalibrated its priorities, focusing on protecting its economic stakes and strategic infrastructure. And those are enormous stakes. With an estimated $21 billion invested in Myanmar, China is eager to protect its strategic projects, such as the deep-water port on Myanmar's Indian Ocean coast. Now, China and Myanmar's junta are said to be negotiating the establishment of a joint security company. The proposal would have Chinese security personnel guard Chinese-owned enterprises and infrastructure, targets that have become more frequent, such as the bombing of China's consulate in Mandalay last October. Not all rebels are happy with Chinese influence inside Myanmar. Zachary Abuza, a professor at the National War College in Washington, views any Chinese presence as an embarrassing turn of events for Myanmar's junta chief, Min Aung Hlaing. Abuza had told DW, quote, "It's a de facto acknowledgement that his forces are overextended, fighting on several fronts to the point where he has no other option but to depend on Chinese mercenaries," unquote. As China now openly supports the junta, the battlefield balance may shift sharply, paving the way for an even more intricate and treacherous conflict. However, it also poses a grave risk for the CCP. If Chinese forces are defeated inside Myanmar, then it would tarnish the carefully crafted image of the PLA on a global scale. India needs to position itself so that in the fallout of the war, Myanmar does not become a Chinese puppet state, burdened by a debt trap. The new power dynamics in Chin and Rakhine offer India an unprecedented chance. If India moves boldly, it can gain long-term trade benefits, stabilize the economy of its northeast, and emerge as a regional powerhouse. It is time for New Delhi to break free from a pacifist past and pursue a bold, strategic and forward-looking Myanmar policy, especially given Chinese hold over India's neighbors such as Pakistan, Maldives and now even Bangladesh. India is pro-democracy while China is backing the military junta in Myanmar. But have your say. How important is it for India to have a stable Myanmar free from Chinese control? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.